Greetings YouTube, my name is A.
With him as always, I am Jay.
And we are Venom!
You mean Scuttlebutt? You might have got yourself lost in the movie a bit there.
Yeah, Scuttlebutt, yeah, I meant to say Scuttlebutt, exactly, yeah. And today we're gonna be reviewing a highly expected blockbuster movie, the name of which you probably already guessed.
Venom, starring the one and only Tom Hardy.
Or how I would like to call it, the big black goo dude.
Gross, that sounds like a porno.
Only a tiny bit. Or what if Flubber went mad?
Yeah, Flubber, but, more Japanese influences.
True. But let's answer the most important question. Jay, would you recommend this movie?
Hells yeah, it's probably one of the best Marvel films outside of Infinity War that I've seen for ages.
It's crazy, I know. First we thought it'll be like,
Yeah, that first trailer made me think it was going to be a steaming pile of feces.
But it exceeded our expectations. I mean, I went to the cinema expecting the movie to be an absolute pile of goo. Pun intended. But it turned out not. Absolutely not. And it is actually a very good movie. A good movie.
We are Venom.
Well, the movie was maybe not with the best story, but it was alright. Something relatable.
Yeah, the story wasn't exactly what we were promised with the whole, it's going to be a villain, it's going to be a different take on the superhero movie. It was just a typical superhero origin story. But overall, until the very end of the third act, I very much enjoyed it. There was nothing I disliked it, and again, it fell into the same sort of thing as Doctor Strange, where the premise was good, but the villain was anticlimactic with no real motivations. But Venom himself was a very enjoyable character.
By the way, further down the line, there will be a lot of movie spoilers. We'll be discussing a lot of movie plots, so if you haven't seen the movie, keep that in mind. And trust us, and just go see it. Don't look at the reviews, and just see it. And I strongly believe that you're gonna be quite surprised for what the movie is packing.
For sure, a definite recommendation for me. Fun, thrills, and a fairly enjoyable storyline that isn't bogged down too much by any of the side nonsense. It's just an origin story. And yes, a lot of people can complain that an origin story is not a real story, but for as they go, good.
Yeah, even though the movie has its flaws, I was willing to overlook them because it's just Venom. It is the movie I wish I could have seen when I was little. Big, strong, overpowered Venom that wrecks everything and doesn't take poop from no one. Just a mighty black goo of absolute destruction.
Overall, the film does quite well to actually establish Eddie Brock as a character. It makes him very relatable, which is a little bit confusing for how they're eventually going to try and turn him into a villain, if that's where they go with this. But yeah, like he was saying, this man, once the Venom suit's on, the gloves are off, there are a lot of jokes coming at you, it is enjoyable, and it's just fun. It's like going back and playing the old Prototype, but giving some good old quips whilst you're ripping apart Grandma.
Picture this, a rhino painted black, filled with steroids, with a little bit more brain tissue than average, rampaging through the city. So that's kind of 1/5 of what Venom actually does to the city.
A lot of people might be complaining that this is a Venom standalone, there's obviously no Spider-Man, but
there is no way that current Spider-Man, Tom Holland, can stand against that machine of destruction. There is no way.
We'll eat both your arms, and then both of your legs, and then we will eat your face right off your head.
Look, man.
The Venom doesn't care. You're a snack. Tentacles. And Spider-Man digested.
And yeah, that goes without saying. Like, could you imagine Tom Holland's character in this? Venom would have obliterated him. The only way they could even try to begin to get it a little bit even is, of course, with the Iron Man suit. But I think Spider-Man spent too long being Iron Man's sidekick, and he needs to develop more into his own character.
Imagine that. I want to talk about Eddie Brock, played by Tom Hardy. He is believable! I don't understand why people think he's not, that his motivations are off.
Yeah, a lot of people might have been worried if they don't really know Tom Hardy, but he is a very good actor and he is very diverse. So if you look at all of his different films, he is very good at his performances and playing different sorts of characters. And it was nice to see him not be an absolute in-control badass like he normally is, whereas this time Eddie Brock was more relatable. Hell, I felt like I was watching Tim Pool off that old channel on YouTube that gives you the news information. Like, what happened if he got screwed out, lost his job, and then got superpowers? And that's where Eddie Brock is in this. He's the sort of the man that's lost in the situation, and the audience is able to relate to his character because of it. He is a very likable and relatable character. Again, it's going to confuse you if they do eventually try to set him up as a villain, because he has absolutely no motivation to be a bad guy whatsoever.
Yeah, he's just the guy who got possessed by this black goo and trying to figure out what the hell to do with that and how to deal with it, how to survive. He does not have much motivation about being evil, at least not now.
For me, I think they got the dynamic really well, the duality, where you've got Eddie Brock, who's just the sort of the nice, relatable protagonist type, who's not too deep, but he's lost in a bad situation. And then they just throw in Venom's character, who is the complete night and day, where he's just powerful. You know he can do anything he wants, and he's gonna do anything he wants, and he's gonna drop all sorts of jokes. Hell, the Venom character has a better personality than Deadpool does to be Deadpool. Like, it was very enjoyable the way that they would split the quips between them. And overall, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It's not the big dumb villain that you might have expected, but it's definitely going to appeal more to that millennial type sense of humor.
Talking about humor, Venom makes Hardy do weird and uncomfortable things, like eating trash. I mean, I would be freaked out if I just have to eat trash for no reason. I have an urge to eat trash. That's something that not a lot of people like to do.
Oh, dude, that was gross. That was like coming back after a week bender and you're just out of money, you're out of food, and you're just crawling through the trash and eating stale chicken. That's disgusting.
I like that finally we got shown a guy who is vulnerable. He's not a superhero. He's not willing to risk his life to protect others like every other superhero. Every other generic superhero. He makes mistakes. He has his flaws. This makes him interesting. This makes him human. Relatable.
Oh yeah, the character was never the sort of, I have to do the right thing because it's the right thing. Whereas this guy was mostly spending the whole film just running, because basically he was investigating some guy, lost his job over it, and then he got tricked back into investigating him again, and then he got superpowers. So the rest of the film is just him trying to run. It's not him like, with these powers, I could be a superhero. No, it was mostly him just like, how do I stop myself from getting dead?
And they don't spoon feed us how cool he is or how much stuff he can do. In fact, he can't do nothing until the Venom shows. What I like is that they give us freedom to decide who this Eddie Brock guy is. Is he the guy we sympathize with? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Do we like him? Or we don't? We make our own impression. They don't force us into a category of some sorts. Supporting characters, yes, I like them too. They are believable and they react according to what's happening in the world, which is incredibly important.
Yeah, for me, the supporting cast wasn't used too much. Like, there weren't exactly too many strong characters. There was his friend from work, the guy dating his ex, and of course his ex. And then, of course, you had the villain and the little characters around that. But yeah, I feel like the side characters, they were good, they were believable, and they weren't forced down your throat. I hate films about superhero movies where it spends the whole time doting on their partners. Like, hell, a stupid Iron Fist movie where it's all about his girlfriend Colleen. No one goes to watch Iron Fist to see about Colleen, and I didn't go to see Venom to watch about Venom's ex-girlfriend. I came to see Venom being Venom, doing Venom-y things.
Let's go to the bad guy. He has his motivation, and it's not incredibly dumb. I feel he can be kinda Thanos-like? Kinda Thanos-y? Because he wants to help the world, even through cruel means.
Don't think I would compare this villain too much to Thanos, because his motivations were fairly lackluster, whereas Thanos's were more developed. This guy is basically, he's just a dumb left-wing environmentalist who's like, the world is doomed, so let's get aliens and wipe out humans, because humans bad, aliens good, to space!
Fair point, but I felt like he's not just a mindless filler bug for the main hero to defeat to rediscover his goodness or badness, but you can't deny he had his good qualities and bad.
Well, it's like there wasn't really too much of a villain at first. Like, there was a guy who was obviously the typical left-wing tech scientist bad guy who hates humanity, but until the very end of the third act, there wasn't really a villain per se, and we'll discuss that in a little bit, but I was not happy about the end of the film.
He is what would have been if Elon Musk turned evil.
Yeah, basically, if Elon Musk became a far left-wing radical who hates humanity, then yes, that's essentially what this villain is. Basically, he's decided that humans are garbage, so let's become goo monster, alien, tentacle, Japanese fantasy things.
And that's not always a good thing. The villain fell eventually, but that's the way of the things in the movies. Somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. You can't have everything. And if your name is not in the main titles, like Venom, tough. Should have changed the name.
However, the bit that lost me was I was fine with this character. I didn't hate him, he was fairly enjoyable, and again, it was good not seeing another white guy as the villain. But let's talk about his symbiote. Like, come on. A bigger, stronger Venom. This trope needs to die. I hate this trope in films where it's just a bigger version of the hero is now the villain. How will he overcome this obstacle? No, it's dumb. Films, stop doing it. That's dumb. It's dumb.
Supporting characters. Are they adjusting well to the surroundings? Yes, they do. Are they funny? Yes, they are. Some might not like the humor, but I found it quite enjoyable.
I like that the characters kind of responded to the world around them. Like, when he was going off doing his Venomy things, people freaked out and they were trying to see what was going down. There was even a nice little scene where Eddie's apartment block got completely locked off by the police, but it kind of felt like the world wasn't really reacting. Like, the characters were, but the world wasn't. Like, there's this big high-speed chase where they've ripped up all of downtown San Francisco, and you don't see any real reactions from the people in it. There's people just going about their businesses, going down to the restaurants. I'm pretty sure if half of the main highway got taken out by some sort of terrorist drone attack and that some sort of super motorbike monster chase went down through the town, no matter what kind of cover-up you did, I feel like there should have been more of a reaction from the general populace.
Yeah, judging by the reaction of the populace, I think they see the superhero, supervillain thing every Tuesday, Wednesday. So, no big deal for them. The only character I have a quarrel with is the henchman of the main villain. He was just over the top for me. Always behaving a bit too, I am evil. Apart from that, nope, I don't have no issues with any other character whatsoever. Not even the poor decimated SWAT team members.
Oh yeah, I had absolutely no problems with the henchman. Yes, he did seem a little over the top in bits, but again, he was chasing a giant space goo tentacle Japanese monster thing. It's understandable he's going to be a little bit on edge, but yeah, so I had no problems with him.
Action part. That was glorious. That's how Venom should move.
Now, I get that they've changed the origin story of Venom a little bit, because Venom had sort of Spider-Man type powers, where he had been the symbiote with Spider-Man, and that's where he got his powers from. So when he took over Eddie, their combined hatred created Venom. But, I don't know, Venom felt more like Carnage in this, and then obviously the villain was Super Carnage, and then at the end they introduced Carnage, so it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. But I really enjoyed the action, I really enjoyed the banter. I loved the Venom quips. Like, a lot of people said that there's really out-of-place humor, but you have out-of-place humor like the terrible Disney Star Wars films, and then you have just 80s action quips like this, and I found it all very enjoyable, and I'm quite cynical when it comes to films and dialogue.
I was a bit skeptical about the tentacle thing, cause it seemed from the trailer that every solution would be fixed by the tentacle that, tentacle this, Nah, guys went creatively about that, and respect for that.
As a man who enjoys anime, is there a wrong amount of tentacles?
There is always a right amount of tentacles. We got shown how badass Venom can be versus an average Joe, even though the average Joe is a SWAT team member. Bottom line, Venom kicks butts. Last fight, Venom versus the main baddie guy.
Yeah, honestly, the last fight was where the film lost it for me. Like, the whole way through, I had enjoyed it. I had liked the setup for the characters, I'd liked the setup for the supporting characters. The villain, he had motivation, so I had no problems with him. I liked Venom's sort of powers, his abilities. The action was okay. The CGI didn't throw me off. It was sketchy in places, but I've seen much worse. Again, the aforementioned new Disney Star Wars films. But no, I really enjoyed it. The only time the film lost me was right at the end with that final battle. It felt really stupid to me, because obviously it was Venom trying to stop more powerful Venom, and then Eddie dies, and then he doesn't die, and then the bigger Venom gets screwed out, and the spaceship he was on gets exploded because his plan was to bring more symbiote tentacle rape monsters to Earth to take it over because reasons.
Beautiful thing that they incorporated the fight in the symbiote where symbiote detaches from the human, fights a bit, human to human, then symbiote again, and it wasn't happening a lot, but it was beautiful when it was.
Honestly, rather than having the bigger, dumber, evil symbiote, because that's essentially what they've set up for the sequel, I would have preferred that maybe they brought in another hero. Like, obviously you've got your guy who wanted to go to space and do all sorts of bad things with more symbiotes, but I would have preferred if the final battle had been maybe they called in another Marvel character to fight Venom. Like, obviously Spider-Man is still owned by Sony at the time. I wouldn't have even minded having Spider-Man pop in at the end for the final showdown. Maybe Venom went on a rampage trying to escape and Spider-Man tries to come in and stop him, and then in the end they realise that Venom wasn't the villain, and then together they go and they take down the evil scientist or something. But yeah, I didn't like Venom versus bigger Venom in a race to a spaceship.
Humor in the movie, it is there, and it is aplenty. Mostly delivered by incredible Tom Hardy and Venom suit itself. Again, low expectations, went to the movie, expected the Venom to be boring and not interesting, but it turned itself around. He is quite sharp-tongued and delivers quirky lines all the time. He has his own point of view and represents kind of like a more of a bestial side of the main character.
Oh yeah, I saw that trailer like a turd in the wind, and I just thought the entire Venom film was going to be terrible. I'd lost all expectations for it. But honestly, Venom's character felt like a child playing with ants, and that's essentially what it is, because this creature is so far beyond humans that that's all we are to him is ants, and he's a kid having fun. And I enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed the duality between the freaking out of Eddie Brock and just the constant carnage and mayhem that is being caused by Venom, and him just enjoying it the whole time and mocking his new symbiote host, and it's slowly then building up a relation.
Last thing for me is PG-13 rating. Guys, girls, honestly, I don't think it's such a big deal. Venom still eats heads, Venom still decapitates people, even though it's a tiny bit of a off-camera. It is still the Venom that we expected to see, at least I expected to see. It is brutal. Yes, it could have been an R rating, but honestly, it doesn't affect that much. Judging by the contents of the movie, I'm quite fascinated how they could have gone away with just a PG-13 rating. There's clearly much more going on in that movie. Evil stuff. The scene alone where one of the symbiotes possesses a child and allegedly kills it. That alone is a R rating. But again, what do I know?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more that they could have done with Venom and that PG-13, but at the same time, he wasn't ever a villain. Like, yes, in the comics, Venom is seen to be a villain until you do the whole Agent Venom thing. That's a completely different character. But in this film, Venom wasn't a bad guy. He didn't need to be going around like this horror movie monster murdering and killing everything. Yes, he does do a few gory things, he makes a few quippy jokes, but I think overall it's still a superhero movie, and we shouldn't be trying to glorify the bad guy, and I don't think that we should be sitting there going, Venom could have been doing so much more, he could have been, what about Deadpool, Logan, Again, this just wasn't the character that he played in this film. It was like a kid exploring a planet, and of course Eddie isn't a villain. He has no reason to be a villain. He hasn't been set up to be the Venom that we know, which is the insane bad guy. And yeah, besides the little niggly bits, I didn't like the final showdown, but besides that, the rest of the film was amazing. I don't think he needed to be a villain. PG-13, they could have done more of it. I'm not going to lie about that. I don't understand other people saying that's a bad film. It was a very good and enjoyable film with enjoyable humour. It didn't lose me at any point. And I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with the future films. Like, I want to see how they're going to bring him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want to see if they're going to transition him into being a villain or if they're going to have him more as a hero character. It's just going to be... There is a lot of possibilities, and I'm waiting forward to seeing what they're going to do with it.
And that concludes our review. Guys, please watch the movie. Watch the movie. I repeat, watch the movie. It is good. Let us have Venom 2. Venom 2, the return of the black gooiness of goo.
Yep, give us some feedback below to let us know how you want us to develop. We're still new at this, but we hope to see you all the next time, and we're probably going to be watching Halloween next.
Thank you very much for watching us.